Hello there my fellow sim racers, welcome to today's video, and this one is all about my completely revised sim racing setup. Once again I've decided to rebuild my entire sim rig and change locations. So want to find out all about it? Then keep watching. But first let me take you through a little bit of my sim rig history. So let's start off my sim rig history right at the beginning, which was well over a decade ago now. But don't worry, I'm going to keep it quick. I was able to commandeer a small cupboard under the stairs, measuring 130 centimeters deep by 90 centimeters wide. And oh boy, I had great fun in my little sim racing cupboard. I was able to squeeze a triple screen setup in there, a wide screen setup in there. I went from a wooden rig that I built myself all the way through to a SimLab 8020 rig. But the only drawback was that I had to be able to slide everything in and close the door behind it when not in use. Of course, this requires some creative solutions, but didn't quite give me the room to really breathe and have the setup I ultimately wanted. And that's where phase 2, the sim rig den, comes in. And part 2 of my sim rig history found me moving into my own sim racing den. This all came about when little one flew the nest and decided to move away. Now I did wait a few weeks to make sure she wasn't going to bounce straight back, and then I set about converting that room into my ultimate sim racing setup. And it was a great chance to experiment. I built, rebuilt, tweaked, adjusted, moved, repositioned just about everything and anything to find out what worked and what didn't. Now just as I was getting settled in and thought I'd found the ultimate sim rig setup, unfortunately, things in life happen and little one needed to move back in. Now, no amount of convincing was going to get her to share my sim racing setup with her room, so it was time to move again. Luckily, I have found my very own little sim racing corner to call my own, and this is where I am now, and this is where my sim rig is going to stay. So find out more, why not watch the third and final part of my sim racing history. Let's kick off the updated rig tour with the shifters, as this has seen the biggest change since my last tour. And now I have a dual shifter setup. Now for my H pattern, I'm using a SHH shifter. This is a little 3D printed unit from Spain. It's about €100 and it does H pattern and sequential, although I think the sequential is its weak point, but as a H pattern it can't be beaten at this price point, and it's a nice little small compact unit that's easy to fit on. I have changed the gear knob. It's now a carbon fibre effect Momo style gear knob. It's slightly heavier and it's slightly larger, so it just feels a little bit nicer in everyday use. I can't recommend this little shifter enough. It's brilliant for H pattern. Now behind it is the SimJack sequential shifter. Again, a fairly budget piece of kit, somewhere around the £90 to £100 mark, but it feels absolutely fantastic. It's got a great range of adjustment on it, so you can make it as easy or as stiff as you like. The only thing I didn't like again was the gear knob. I thought it was a little bit too thin, so I've managed to, via a little DIY made adapter, fit a Asetek sequential shifter on here, which gives it a nice bit of weight and a nice bit of heft. Both these shifters are in the ideal location on my SimLab rig, and they fit their bill perfectly, and they both do exactly what I want. Couldn't be happier, and it's one of the big changes of this new rig setup. And let's take a quick look at my display setup. This has seen a big change since I rebuilt the rig. Now my trusty Huawei 34-inch ultra-wide curved monitor is still here at 144Hz and brilliant colour accuracy. I am not going to be changing this monitor anytime soon. It just suits my needs perfectly and gives me a really nice field of view. Dead pleased. But the biggest change has been the second monitor. Gone is the big 34-inch monitor that was stacked above, and I've now got a 14-inch USB monitor that just sits slightly up and to the right of my main viewing screen. This is ideal as a second screen. It's just big enough to be useful, but not too big as to be imposing. At the moment I've got it recording the OBS for this video, but normally there would be a leaderboard up there or a track map so I can see what's going on, and it's just out of your eye line so it doesn't affect you when you're concentrating. But if you just quickly flick your eyes up and you can catch a glance and you can get all the info you need without it being intrusive. It's one of the setup changes after my shifters that I'm most pleased about since I rebuilt and moved the rig. So let's move on to the steering wheel setup. I've still got my Asetek Sim Sports gear. I've got the Prima direct drive wheelbase. This thing is so clean, quick and responsive, and at 12 Newton meters it's got more power than I ever need. I rarely run this anywhere near 100%, so this is a really good investment. I can't see myself changing from this anytime soon. As for the rims, well, I've recently upgraded the Prima Formula rim into a sports car spec rim with the addition of these new LMP handles. You can buy these as a separate add-on, so you can upgrade and change your wheel. They were only €70. They are hard to get hold of at the moment because they are selling out, but it's completely changed the ergonomics of this rim, and it so better suits the GT3 spec cars that I like to race, and it just feels far more natural when driving. I've been so impressed with this initially seemingly small upgrade, and again it just really suits me and my driving style, and I couldn't be happier with this rim. And moving on to my other rim, of course I've got the Prima D-shaped spec round rim. This has been fantastic. It so brilliantly suits my tin tops and my classic sports car racing that I like to do. And although I could have gone all black, there was something about this orange rim with the contrast between the black that really caught my eye. And again, I couldn't be happier. It's a good size at 330mm. It's got a good thick chunky grip, and it just feels right when you combine this with a sequential shifter when you want to jump into any one of your favourite tin tops. It's one of the reasons why I'm so happy to be part of the Asetek Sim Sports ecosystem. And again, with these rims, this wheelbase, I'm not going to be changing anytime soon. One of the best investments I ever made into my sim racing. We're now diving deep into the depths of the rig, the bits that you don't normally see, and these are of course my Asetek Sim Sports Forte pedals with load cell. Now I have thought about in recent weeks upgrading to the Invicta hydraulic system for the brake, but I am still so impressed with this brake pedal. I just absolutely love how stiff it is, how hard it is, and I enjoy how little travel it has. It's not a feature that suits everybody, I do know that, but for me this was the main reason I bought into the Asetek Sim Sports ecosystem, was for these brakes. I just wanted a stiff pedal with minimal travel because it just suited my driving style. I'm a bit ham-fisted, a bit of a lead foot syndrome, and I do tend to stomp on and off the pedals, so I needed something that was able to cope with that and deal with that, and this does it in spades. And again, not the cheapest pedals out there, but I wouldn't change them, and I don't regret a penny I spent on them. Absolutely perfect. And here's just a quick look at my trusty OMP steel tubular bucket seat. Every time I ever mention or talk about this seat, I get a lot of comments about how uncomfortable it is and how I should change seats. But I'll tell you what, I've had this seat for over a year and it's as comfortable now as it was when I first got it. I don't have any back issues, leg or neck issues in it. It's not showing any signs of wear and tear. And to be honest with you, it suits me and it suits my driving style, and I'm more than happy to keep this and rebuild the rig around it whenever I do make any further changes. The change of location has allowed me to change the way I display my ever-growing die-cast model collection. I've now got some thinner white shelves so I can really get more cars out and more cars on display. As you can see, on the bottom row here, we've got a Le Mans Porsche, we've got some classic British touring cars, all championship winners. Up on the top row is my little collection of rally cars, 2 Subarus, one by Petter Solberg, the other one a championship winning car by the great Colin McRae. And talking about Colin McRae and rallying, just above is a print I was able to get. If in doubt, flat out, a classic Colin McRae staying. Now I know that's not quite one of the Subarus that he drove, but I really like the picture. I just like the fact that it was a black and white background with a blue car. It really popped, so I decided to go for it anyway. But this has been one of the joys of changing sim racing location. I've got my own little corner. I can get more of my model car collection out and even have room to maybe buy an extra one or two. That's it. That is my current sim racing setup as of July 2024, and I couldn't be happier with it. The move from the sim racing den to this new sim racing corner allowed me to sort out a couple of small niggly issues, namely with the monitors, with the 234s being a bit overbearing, and finally sorting out the conundrum of the dual shifter setup. I've got the ergonomics spot on now, and I can quickly go from a H pattern to a sequential setup, and without any issues, without any problems. And it's just brilliant. As always, everything has been bolted and mounted to my trusty Lab GT1 EVO 8020 rig. After 4 years of service, this thing is still as rock solid as ever, and it always comes highly recommended. If you want to know any more about any of the sim racing items you've seen, please just ask away in the comments and I'll happily answer. I have done a couple of hardware reviews of some of the items I'm using. Those links will be in the video description, along with a breakdown of all the items I've got. If you found this interesting, please consider giving me a like. Even better would be a subscribe, as now I've got my sim racing setup sorted, I'm going to be going back to sim racing content. There's some interesting tin top stuff on the horizon. Fuso has been busy making some new mods for Assetto Corsa, and of course we've got the new AMS2 build coming with the DTM Audi. So if you want to find out what I think about those, then subscribe now and ready for when they get released later on. In the meantime, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you out on track. Bye bye.